Yeah, it will make lots of problems, like one into the
Yeah.
Oh no, it's telephone message. I wonder what they're about. I didn't expect to be here this morning. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's here this morning on obviously very short notice, my family, my parents, my children and grandchildren, and it is a very special day, and of course, not to ignore this special person. Today, I'm announcing my candidacy for the governor of Oregon. This was a statement I had planned to make to you in 1994. The governor's announcement yesterday has not changed my goal. It has simply changed my timetable. But as Secretary of State, I have served for over 5 years as a statewide office holder, next in succession to the governor. I have had to know for those 5 years that at any moment under 2 governors, I had to be prepared to step forward and take that job. I have understood the responsibility for over 5 years. I am prepared, and today I ask for the office of Governor of the State of Oregon. My goal today is the same one that brought me into government 20 years ago. My belief that I can make a difference for people. In 1971, I came to the legislature as a citizen advocate to plead for the educational rights of my disabled son. I learned that I could change the lives of people in this process. I learned that I could move the mountain of government. In the 20 years since, as a local school board member, a community college board member, county commissioner, legislator, and Secretary of State, I have never quit believing that I can make my government serve people better. That is why I am running for governor. Since I was elected Secretary of State in 1984, I have demonstrated my very strong belief that as a statewide office holder, I have responsibilities broader than just those given to me by the legislature and the Constitution. I don't believe I've ever said of any Oregon problem, that's not my job. As Secretary of State, I've worked hard to accomplish my goals and my top priorities for this agency. Performance audits for state government, stronger, enforceable, and strict adherence to our election laws, adding real accessibility to our election system, and preserving Oregon's historical records. But I took on other jobs as they needed to be done. I serve on the Hanford Waste Board and have for some time working to help both Oregon and Washington find solutions to the threat that threatens the Columbia River with that massive nuclear dump. In 1971, I chaired the Governor's Task Force on Workers' Compensation Reform. Our report was clear that there was no quick fix, and we understood then that there were major elements left to tackle. But some of our task force recommendations that the legislature accepted have changed Oregon's rates and reduced them from the 3rd highest to the 8th highest in this nation. I don't have to tell you that the job is clearly not done yet. But I wasn't afraid to tackle the issue and risk the controversy. I didn't say it's not my job. I served all last year on the task force to finance long-term care. It's a serious issue for Oregon senior citizens and for their families. Our legislation out of that task force has now given Oregon one of this nation's first laws setting strict and strong standards for the sale of nursing home insurance. It wasn't my job, but it affected thousands and thousands of Oregonians, like my parents, who wanted to protect their savings and wanted to protect their families. And they ended up buying policies that were long on cost and short on benefits. My willingness to deal with the tough issues is much like the old fable about the little red hen. You can't expect to enjoy the bread if you're not willing to grind the corn. Because I expect to enjoy the benefits of a better Oregon, I have been willing to take on the hard work of help to make it happen. Today, I take on another very difficult task. I enter the campaign for governor against an opponent who has spent months raising big money from here to Washington, D.C. I can't compete with his money, his Oxford degree, or his experience as a lawyer. However, I have won each of my campaigns with dollars from hundreds of small contributors across the state of Oregon. If I need to do that, I can do that again. I have been clear with Oregonians about who I am and where I stand. I have worked very hard to make government more efficient and more accessible and more understandable. I believe that my small-town background and my blue-collar background both make me more accessible and more understandable to Oregonians. Part of my job for the last 5 years has been traveling through the state of Oregon into every little community and corner of Oregon. I have spent those years talking with Oregonians. It has been, without any question, the most exciting and the most educational experience of my life. Today, I began a new conversation with the people of Oregon. I am asking them for the honor to serve as their governor for the next 4 years. Thank you. Be happy to take your questions.
Could you introduce us here to the family members behind you?
Well, it may be difficult. So these are my parents, Bob and Carmen Huey. You know my husband, Senator Frank Roberts. My stepdaughter, Mary Wendy Roberts, the Labor Commissioner. My sister, Pat Welter, who lives here in town. My son, Mark Sanders. My other son, Mike Sanders. My daughter-in-law, Susan. My granddaughter, Caitlin. And Rex Armstrong, my son-in-law. And Leslie Roberts and Morgan. And Ian. Did I miss anybody that's family? Seems like a lot bigger family than I ever knew I had. And I didn't forget a single name. That's amazing today.
Father, do you see this becoming a race of personalities then? Since you say you can't compete with him money-wise or with his Oxford degree, is this going to be a race of personalities?
I expect it to be two kinds of races. A race of issues, a race of background, and I suppose you can't avoid a governor's race becoming a race of personality. But my intent is to make this a race of issues. What you've done, where you stand, and what you're willing to do.
Which issues, Barbara?
Well, I don't think there's any question that the issues that everyone understands are part of this campaign and part of the state right now, the workers' comp reform package and whatever that means at this point, the school finance and taxation reform in general in the state. I think those are two very big issues, and I think they're ones that I have experience on that no other statewide official outside of the governor currently has. I served for 10 years as a school board member, for almost 4 years as a community college member, for 4 years on the Revenue and School Finance Committee of the House. I've been talking about school finance so long that it's sort of second nature. I'm still doing workshops all over the state on school finance. I expect to be very active in what happens on school finance reform as I have been in the past. The workers' comp question, one of Oregon's most difficult questions, clearly. And I don't come to it uninformed, and I don't come to it unprepared. I've been watching with great interest what's going on with the Democratic proposal. I've listened to what's happened to some degree, and I'm getting ready to get a new briefing on what's happening with the governor's work. And obviously, I have seen the proposal that the Republicans submitted. So I'm going to try to understand those proposals, and I'll be very clear about what I support and what I don't among those proposals.
Well, Barbara, you say it's going to be a race of issues, then. Do you know what you want to do on school finance? The other candidates have been criticized for not having a plan on that.
Well, I firmly believe that we will not solve the school finance problem until we understand as a people that this is not a politician's issue. It will not happen until the politicians of the state and the people of the state come together and decide what they want done. We can't do it without the people of Oregon. And I think for all the criticism it may have been taken as being kind of hokey, the committees that are traveling around this state right now into communities all over the state listening to the people and helping them understand what that decision is about have done more to bring that attention to the forefront in communities than anything I've seen happen. The May ballot, I think, may be at least the beginning of letting Oregonians tell us what they want instead of us what they don't want. And so I think it's going to be a proposal that will look, I believe, at the sales tax before we're through. I think it is an issue that is not going to die in Oregon. It is there, and it is not going to go away. You can't do school finance reform without at least discussing it, and you can't do tax reform in the state without discussing it, and I'm not afraid to talk about it.
When did you make your decision to run, and did the governor suggest it?
I made my decision to run yesterday morning. The governor called me Sunday night and told me that in 48 hours he would make his decision if he would seek re-election. He told me he was leaning toward not running, but his decision was not final. He called me yesterday morning just after 8:30 to tell me that he would not run. I made my decision within a few minutes after that call.
Will you be trying to gain access to his campaign funds?
The governor and I have not talked about issues of finance, staffing, any of the things that deal with the campaign. Yesterday, my discussions with the governor were much more personal than that, and they will be that way for a few days while he deals with the very difficult situation he deals with. And then,
How hard is it going to be for you to jump into it now? Fromeyer's already got a 4 or 5 month jump on you in terms of his whole election machine. How hard is that going to be for you?
well, clearly it makes the process more difficult. If you've known for a year you were going to run and you've announced and been collecting money for 6 months or so, you really have an advantage. And I'm not stupid enough to know that advantage doesn't exist. But I have advantages that Dave Fromeyer doesn't have, and I expect to use them.
Which are?
Well, I don't think there's a statewide official who spent much more time talking to the people of the state of Oregon than I have. Literally, I do it, I've done it constantly. They know who I am, and I know who they are, and I think that's an advantage that no one can take away from me.
Barbara, the Republicans already are saying they're going to paint you as a flaming Portland liberal and go back through your legislative record. How are you going to respond to that?
I am a Democratic liberal. I am not embarrassed to say that. The Republicans have been trying to paint me a number of ways for a very long time. After all of the things I've done in the legislature and the record I had in this office and the issues I've spoken out on, many of them very controversial, the Republicans couldn't even find a candidate to field against me in 1988. The people of the state in all 36 counties re-elected me Secretary of State. I think the people will decide how to paint me and not the Republicans.
Has the governor indicated whether or not he might be willing to make some campaign appearances on your behalf?
We did not discuss the campaign. We have not discussed it, and I would like to wait a couple of days to do that with
Have you
him.
chosen a campaign manager?
We have not done that. We will begin, and actually began yesterday, looking for a temporary headquarters that we could use for the next couple of weeks while we got the campaign organized. We, of course, have talked some names, but we have not made any decisions with regards to the campaign yet.
Are you relieved not to be the first woman to run for governor in Oregon?
I don't think that even crossed my mind. It really didn't. I didn't think about the woman part of what I'm doing.
Family issues have weighed very heavily on the minds of several of the candidates and the governor in thinking about whether to run. Could you discuss for a minute your husband's health and your son's health and how that could affect your governorship?
Well, I want to say, first of all, that I think you heard yesterday from Neil, you heard from Norma Polish yesterday, from Dave Fromeyer, from Vicatia, that there is no way you do the kind of thing that we do without it affecting your family and without your family affecting what you do. It is part of what we are, and it is part of the pressure and stress you deal with when you're doing this kind of thing. Frank's health is good. He has, at this point in time, a clear bill of health. It's obvious he is with us in a wheelchair and will be. That doesn't affect his either mental or physical health. He has been a very strong advocate of my doing what I'm doing today, not just for a long time, but yesterday morning as well. He was the first person I called to come down and talk to me yesterday, and we have a very close working relationship and a very strong commitment to what we do in public service. My son is standing right here and in good health, is employed at Mount Hood Community College, where he's been for the last 6 years, and he is doing things they said he'd never do, and I'm very proud of him.
Well, Barbara, when you considered running for Congress last year, you cited personal considerations in not running.
That's right.
What's changed now that allows you to take on what may be even a tougher race?
The decision not to run for Congress was because I didn't want to leave the state of Oregon. My parents are here, my children are here, my grandchildren are here, my friends are here, and the state I love is here. And I decided I didn't want to spend my life back and forth, at least at this point in my life, on a plane to Washington, D.C. I didn't want to move to Washington, D.C., and you should never make a decision about running for Congress in the spring of the year in Oregon. It was so beautiful. It It was the most beautiful spring we probably ever had in Oregon. I remember walking out on my porch one morning and looking out at the creek and saying, why would I want to go? So that's the difference, I think, is I can do this one and still stay where I love to be.
Barbara, you said that you never task was not your job. Do you think Kornmeyer said that?
He has not been as visible on the issues that matter to Oregon as I have been. He has not, until he started running for governor, been involved in discussing the controversial issues of things like workers' comp. I've not been afraid of him, and I've been there. I can't speak to whether he's been afraid. I'm just saying I haven't seen him out there on issues broader than his office.
How do you feel about holding down the job you have now while running a campaign? I mean, realizing Kornmeyer's doing that too, but what are your concerns about it?
It's a concern I had when I ran for re-election in '88, even though it was clearly not as difficult a race. When you've been given a responsibility like this one by the people of Oregon, I think you feel very sensitive, and I do, about doing the job. I have the best staff in place I've had since I took this office. I could never have done what I was doing if I didn't feel as confident as I do now about the staff that I have.
Have you had any discussions with the Democratic leadership in the legislature about your decision?
Part of them. I talked to a number of them. Most of them called me before I called them yesterday. Very supportive. I talked to the 3 congressional offices and the congressman yesterday. The kind of support I got yesterday, legislators, we've got a whole stack full of notes of calls from legislators saying, go for it. And I feel really good to know that people, before even a moment's hesitation, were here saying to me, we want you to go. And those were the legislative leaders and as well as the congressional leadership of my party.
Barbara, you said you can't compete with Kornmeyer in fundraising. Do you have, how much money are you going to need? Do you have some sort of ballpark figure?
We haven't set a figure yet. Obviously, it's going to be more than the $11,000 I have in the bank right now.
You said earlier you were willing to discuss the sales tax. Go ahead and discuss it. Does the state need a sales tax?
I don't think we'll ever solve the problem of school finance, of high property tax, and of high income tax in the state till Oregonians are comfortable looking at a good alternative as taking away portions of that. They've had that opportunity before. I don't have to tell you, it's been on the ballot before. Oregonians have rejected it. I served for a number of years on something that used to be called the No Sales Tax League of Oregon, and I was a very strong opponent of the sales tax. I know a great deal more about taxation now than I did in the years I served on that committee. I believe that you can design a fair, non-regressive sales tax, just as you can make your income tax more progressive and you can make your property tax more progressive. And I believe it's possible to design that in Oregon, and I'm willing to support, as I have in the past, measures that I think meet that criteria.
Well, put it this way then, Barbara. Are you going to tell the voters before November what kind of school finance package we should have in the state of Oregon? Will you commit to that now?
What I would like to do, and I'm going to be real clear, having 24 hours to get where I am today, I want to see what is happening with the proposals that are now coming out and ready to go on the ballot on that menu. I want to see what they look like. I'm interested in the reactions of Oregonians because we won't solve the problem without them. And if the components that I support and I believe are right, I will be very vocal and clear about where I stand on them.
Well, this sort of raises the question that Craig Berkman said yesterday when talking about the prospect of your candidacy, and he said that really you didn't have an agenda in place, that this was just politics that was bringing you into the race, whereas Kornmeyer's been working for several months on an agenda.
Well, obviously he's had longer to work on an agenda, but I haven't heard any more solutions than I've got this morning. Other questions?
Will you try to characterize your campaign as a grassroots type campaign, and will you try to make finances and Kornmeyer's campaign coffers an issue?
I don't think I need to make that an issue. I think that's what the campaign reporting law is for in Oregon, so Oregonians can see where we get our money and they can make a decision about how they feel about it. I don't think I need to spend a lot of time coming after it.
Where will you attack it?
My job is to run for governor and to talk about the record I've built, the promises I've kept, the skills I bring to that office, and the leadership that I've shown in Oregon. I need to run in favor of Barbara Roberts more than I need to run against Dave Frohnmeyer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
real tough not having an answer to control my school finance proposal, right? Day one. Let's see, day 270.